We just want a peaceful Christmas with the family, don't come. The message from my son, Kevin, hit me like a ton of bricks. I read it over and over, the words almost blurring together as I tried to process them. Christmas. The one time of year I've always cherished, hoping for warmth, love, and togetherness. Instead, it felt like a knife to the heart. I've given so much to my family over the years, sacrificed my time, my energy, my heart, and now this. I couldn't help but feel betrayed. I've always been there for them, through thick and thin, supporting them when they needed me. And now, on Christmas, they were telling me to stay away. I didn't reply right away. My fingers hovered over my phone as I fought back the tears that threatened to spill. I wasn't going to beg them. I wasn't going to plead. I'd been the one doing all the giving, and it was clear now that I was the one being left out. I took a deep breath, calmed myself, and typed a simple response: enjoy. I didn't need to explain myself. I didn't need to beg for their love or attention. They had made their choice. But the silence that followed my message was deafening. The cold reality settled in as I put my phone down, my heart feeling heavier with every passing second. I sat there for a moment, just staring at the empty living room. The Christmas tree, with its bright lights and carefully placed ornaments, suddenly felt like a cruel reminder of everything that was falling apart. I'd spent hours decorating that tree, just like I had every year. I'd spent days planning for this Christmas, thinking that maybe this year, I could feel the closeness I once had with my son, my daughter-in-law, my grandchildren. But now, that hope was dashed. A few hours later, I heard the doorbell ring. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I slowly made my way to the door, wondering who it could be. When I opened it, I was greeted by the face of my best friend, Sarah. She looked at me with concern, her eyes soft and full of sympathy. "I thought I'd drop by and check on you," she said, stepping inside. "You doing okay?" I didn't say anything at first. I just stood there for a moment, taking in her words. Then, I let out a long, shaky breath. "I don't know what's wrong with me, Sarah," I confessed. "I just feel like I've been discarded. It's Christmas, for crying out loud. How could they do this to me?" She gave me a tight hug, rubbing my back comfortingly. "It's not you, Helen," she said softly. "You know that, right? They're the ones who've changed. Not you." I nodded, though deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had somehow failed. Failed as a mother. Failed as a grandmother. Failed as a woman who just wanted to be loved by her family. Sarah stayed with me for a while, keeping me company, distracting me from the ache in my chest. But as the hours passed and the day turned to night, I couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. How had we gone from family dinners, holiday traditions, and happy memories to this? How had they become so cold and distant? I didn't know the answer, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. The next morning, I woke up early, as I always did, and started making breakfast. I didn't feel like cooking, but it was the one thing that gave me some semblance of control. As I stirred the eggs in the pan, I glanced at the Christmas tree again. It looked just as beautiful as it always had, but now it felt like a reminder of the emptiness I was starting to face. I had spent so many years building up my family, pouring my love and energy into making things work. But now, it felt like everything was slipping away. As I set the table for one, I couldn't help but wonder, was this it? Was this the end of everything I'd worked so hard for? Was my family gone? Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Kevin. "We're back. I'll come by later to pick up some of my stuff. Don't make it weird." My heart sank. I didn't know what to feel anymore. All I wanted was to have my family back. I wanted them to realize what they were doing to me. But deep down, I knew that wasn't going to happen. It was too late for that. I had spent too much time trying to please them, trying to hold everything together, while they slowly pulled away. As the day wore on, I felt more and more like a stranger in my own home. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I was just numb. And then it hit me, Kevin thought he had all the power. He thought he could control everything. But I wasn't going to let him get away with it anymore. I wasn't going to let him or anyone else treat me like I didn't matter. I had spent years being the glue that held this family together, but I was done now. I was done being invisible. Done being ignored. Done being pushed aside. That night, when Kevin showed up to pick up his things, I stood in the doorway, my arms crossed, my face calm and composed. "Helen, I don't want this to be weird," he said, his eyes not meeting mine. "I'm just here to grab a few things." I didn't say anything at first. I just looked at him, taking in the boy I had raised, the man who had turned his back on me. "I'm not sure what you want from me, Kevin," I finally said, my voice steady. "I don't know if you understand, but I'm done. I'm done with pretending. I'm done being treated like an outsider in my own family." His face twisted in confusion. "Mom, what are you talking about?" I didn't flinch. I just stared at him. "You've made your choice. And now, I'm making mine." I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there in the doorway. I didn't need to explain myself further. It was time for me to take control. I had spent too long letting others dictate my worth. And now, I was going to find it again, on my own terms. The next few days felt like an endless blur. I moved through the motions of daily life, but it felt as though I was living in a world that didn't quite belong to me anymore. My house was quiet, too quiet, and the familiar hum of the refrigerator was the only sound that kept me company. I hadn't heard from Kevin, and I didn't expect to. There was nothing left to say. The words he'd sent me, "We just want a peaceful Christmas with the family, don't come," had sunk deep into my heart. At first, I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream at him, demand answers, ask him how he could treat me like this. But instead, I sat with it. I sat in the silence, letting the hurt wash over me in waves. It wasn't just the message, it was the years of neglect, the growing distance, the subtle ways they had all pushed me out. I had spent my life giving everything to them, to my family, and now I was left with nothing but the echo of their absence. A small part of me wanted to show up anyway, to be the mother and grandmother I had always been, to break through the walls they had built. But I knew that would be a mistake. They didn't want me there. I had to accept that. I had to face the truth. The family I had built, the one I had poured my love into, had turned its back on me. And as painful as it was, I had to let them go. But even in that pain, I could feel something else stirring inside me, something I hadn't felt in years. A quiet strength. I wasn't going to chase after them. I wasn't going to beg for their love. If they didn't see my worth, then it was their loss. I had given so much of myself, and now it was time to take it back. That night, I sat in my favorite chair by the window, looking out at the snow falling gently outside. The lights from the Christmas tree twinkled softly in the corner of the room. I had decorated it all by myself, just like I always did. It was beautiful. And in that moment, for the first time in days, I smiled. The tree didn't need anyone else to make it shine. I didn't need them to make me feel whole. I was enough. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in a long time. I was going to change things. I wasn't going to sit around and wait for my family to realize they had hurt me. I wasn't going to be the victim anymore. I was going to take control of my life, my happiness, my future. I had spent too long putting others first, always making sure they were happy, making sure their needs were met. But now, it was my turn. It was time to do something for me. I got dressed, went out for a walk in the crisp morning air, and as I walked through the quiet streets, something inside me shifted. The pain was still there, but it wasn't overwhelming anymore. It was just a reminder. A reminder that I deserved better. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again. When I returned home, I picked up the phone and made a call to the local community center. I had always wanted to take a pottery class. I had always loved the idea of creating something with my hands, something beautiful, something that was mine. I signed up for the class that started the following week. As I hung up the phone, I felt a sense of excitement, of anticipation, that I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just the pottery class, it was the beginning of something new. A new chapter. A new me. The next few days passed in a blur of small changes. I started cooking the meals I wanted to eat, not just the ones I thought others would enjoy. I spent time reading books I had always wanted to read, but never had the chance. I started to rediscover the things that made me happy, the things that made me feel alive. I wasn't waiting for anyone anymore. I was living for myself. One afternoon, as I was sitting in my kitchen, sipping a cup of tea, my phone buzzed. It was Kevin. I hesitated for a moment before opening the message. I could feel my heart race as I read his words. "Mom, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I've been an idiot. I want to make things right." For a moment, I didn't know what to think. Part of me wanted to rush to forgive him, to embrace him like I always had. But another part of me knew better. I had spent too long allowing myself to be treated like this. I wasn't going to let him off the hook that easily. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I put my phone down and took a deep breath. The silence in the room felt different now, quieter, more peaceful. I wasn't rushing to fix things anymore. I wasn't rushing to please anyone. I would take my time. I would let him wait. And when I was ready, I would decide what to do. But for now, I was going to keep living my life. For me. The following week, as I walked through the doors of the community center, a sense of nervous excitement bubbled up inside me. It was the first time in years I had done something for myself. The pottery class was small, just a handful of people, most of them younger than me, but the room felt welcoming, warm, and inviting. I found a seat at a wheel, my hands trembling slightly as I prepared to dive into this new adventure. I had always loved working with my hands, but I had never had the time to explore it before. Now, here I was, carving out space for myself in a world that had often left me behind. The instructor, a kind woman named Karen, smiled at me as I sat down. "Are you excited?" she asked, her voice soft and encouraging. I nodded, trying to mask my nerves with a smile. "I think so," I said, the words feeling strange but true. As the class began, I let myself get lost in the motions. The cool clay beneath my hands felt soothing, grounding, almost like a reminder that I still had the power to create, to shape something beautiful. With each spin of the wheel, I felt the tension leave my body. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. The days that followed were filled with small victories. I woke up each morning with a sense of purpose, eager to continue working on my pottery. I spent hours in the studio, shaping clay, molding it into something new. I was rediscovering parts of myself that had been buried for so long. But as I started to find my footing, Kevin's messages kept coming. The first one was a simple apology. "I'm sorry, Mom. I was out of line." I didn't respond right away. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to accept his apology, to move forward, but another part of me wasn't ready to forgive him so easily. I needed time. Time to figure out who I was now, without constantly waiting for his approval, without needing him to define my worth. Over the next few days, the messages kept coming. Each one a little more desperate than the last. "Please, Mom. We need to talk. I miss you. I don't want to lose you. I was wrong. I see that now." I read them, but I didn't answer. Instead, I focused on my pottery, on the small, beautiful things I was creating. I spent my evenings with Sarah, sharing dinner and talking about everything and nothing. It felt good to have someone by my side who understood me, who didn't judge me for wanting to take control of my own life. One evening, as Sarah and I sat in the kitchen, laughing over a glass of wine, my phone buzzed again. It was from Kevin. "I'm coming over tomorrow. We need to talk." I put the phone down without replying. Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Are you going to see him?" she asked. I took a deep breath. I'm not sure, I replied. I'm still processing everything. I'm not ready to just forgive and forget. Sarah nodded, her expression understanding. You don't have to rush. You've been hurt, Helen. Take your time. The next day, Kevin showed up at my door, just like he said he would. He stood there, his hands stuffed into the pockets of his jacket, looking awkward and unsure of himself. Mom, can we talk? He asked, his voice soft. I looked at him for a moment, taking in the way he shifted uncomfortably on the doorstep. What's there to talk about, Kevin? I said, my voice calm, steady. You've said everything in your messages. He looked down, his eyes filled with regret. I know I hurt you, he said, his voice breaking slightly. I was wrong. I never should have pushed you away. I don't want to lose you. I stood there for a long moment, just watching him. His words seemed sincere, but the hurt ran deep. Too deep for me to just let go of in an instant. I don't know if I can forgive you right now, I said quietly. You've taken so much from me, Kevin. I've given everything to you, to this family, and I've been treated like I don't matter. Kevin's face crumpled, and for the first time, I saw the real pain in his eyes. I'm sorry, he whispered, stepping forward. I was selfish. I've been selfish for so long. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I want to fix this. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to believe him, wanted to go back to the way things were. But another part of me knew that I couldn't keep doing this. I couldn't keep letting him walk all over me. I needed to put myself first. I needed to be strong. I need time, Kevin, I said firmly. I need time to figure out who I am without you, without anyone else telling me how to live my life. I need to rebuild myself. He looked at me, his face full of hurt. I understand, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'll give you the space you need. But please know that I love you, and I'm sorry for everything. I nodded, my heart heavy but resolute. I know you love me. But love isn't enough. It has to come with respect, with understanding. And right now, I need to respect myself. He turned to leave, his shoulders slumped, but before he did, he looked back at me. I'll wait for you, Mom. Whenever you're ready. I watched him walk away, the sound of his footsteps fading into the distance. For the first time in years, I felt like I was finally taking control of my own life. I didn't need anyone to validate me anymore. I didn't need their approval to feel worthy. I was worthy all on my own. The following days felt like a slow unraveling, each hour carrying the weight of the choices I had made and the ones still hanging in the air, unanswered. I continued to focus on my pottery, letting the clay spin beneath my hands as a way to clear my mind. Each shape I crafted became a metaphor for the parts of myself I was rediscovering, unbroken, still capable of creating something beautiful. But even in this peaceful rhythm, my thoughts kept drifting back to Kevin and the family I had once held so close. I thought about all the sacrifices I had made, all the years of putting their needs before mine. The years of love, only to be met with silence and coldness in return. It had taken me so long to realize that I had been giving so much of myself, yet receiving so little in return. The thought of losing my family, even temporarily, weighed on me, but I knew now that I couldn't live for them anymore. I had to live for myself. The phone buzzed again. Kevin's name flashed across the screen. I hesitated for a moment before picking it up. This time, there was no message. Instead, there was just silence. I could hear his breathing on the other end, as if he were waiting for me to say something, anything. I wasn't sure what to say. I wasn't sure if I even wanted to talk to him. But this was the moment. The moment where I had to decide. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Kevin, I said, my voice calm but firm. I've been thinking a lot about everything. About you, about me, about this family. And I need to be clear. I'm not going to keep putting myself last. I'm not going to keep waiting for you to come around. I've spent too many years waiting. He was silent for a long time, and when he finally spoke, his voice cracked with emotion. I never wanted to hurt you, Mom. I didn't realize what I was doing. I was so caught up in everything else, I forgot about you. I was wrong. Please, don't shut me out. I closed my eyes, feeling a mixture of sadness and relief. This wasn't the first time Kevin had apologized, but this time felt different. This time, it wasn't just words. It was an admission. An understanding that he had hurt me, and that hurt wasn't something that could be erased with just an apology. I'm not shutting you out, Kevin, I said softly. But I need to find my own way. I need to find a way to be happy without depending on you or anyone else. I need to learn to be whole on my own. There was another long pause, and then I heard him exhale deeply. I understand, he said quietly. I don't know how to make it right. I felt a pang of sympathy, but I knew that I couldn't make it right for him. He had to do that for himself. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive you, I said, my voice steady, but I hope that one day you'll understand why I have to do this. For me. For my own peace. I get it, he replied. Take all the time you need. I just want you to be okay. I didn't respond right away. I didn't know what else to say. I had said my piece, and now it was time to let go. I hung up the phone and set it down on the table. The weight that had been sitting in my chest for so long seemed a little lighter now, but it wasn't gone. I still had work to do, work on myself, on healing. It wouldn't be easy, but it was necessary. I spent the next few days focusing even more on myself. I went for long walks, read the books I had been putting off, and continued to develop my pottery skills. I found myself growing stronger with each passing day, and I started to realize something I hadn't known in years. I was capable of so much more than I had given myself credit for. And I didn't need anyone's permission to live my life the way I wanted to. One afternoon, I sat outside on my porch, the sun warming my face as I watched the birds flutter around the yard. For the first time in a long time, I felt a deep sense of peace. It wasn't the kind of peace that came from avoiding conflict or ignoring the hurt. It was the peace that came from accepting the truth, from finally seeing myself clearly. I wasn't just a mother, a grandmother, or a wife. I was Helen. And Helen had a right to live her own life, on her own terms. The next time Kevin called, I didn't feel the rush to answer right away. I was in control now, and I didn't need to be the first one to reach out. I waited a few hours before calling him back. When he answered, I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. Mom? It's me, I said, my tone gentle but firm. I've been thinking. And I think it's time we figure out what comes next. There was a long pause before he spoke again. What do you mean? I said slowly, choosing my words carefully. I think it's time for me to live my life without waiting for you to decide when I'm important enough. I've been doing that for years, and it's time for me to take back my power. There was a moment of silence on the other end, and then he finally spoke, his voice full of regret. I'm sorry, Mom. I never meant to make you feel like you weren't important. I know you didn't, I replied softly. But I need to stop waiting for you to realize it. I need to live for me now. I understand, he said quietly. I just want you to be happy. I smiled to myself, feeling a sense of finality in his words. It was as if a chapter had ended, and a new one was beginning. I will be, I said. I'll be just fine. And for the first time in a long time, I truly believed it. Days passed, and as I settled into this new chapter of my life, I realized I was starting to feel a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. The hurt from my family's rejection hadn't disappeared, but it no longer held the same weight over me. I was no longer waiting for someone else's validation. I had learned to fill my own space. The pottery class I had started had become more than just a hobby. It was a part of me now, a part of my soul that I hadn't known was missing. With each new piece I created, I found myself growing stronger, more at peace with the person I was becoming. One afternoon, I stood in front of my pottery wheel, my hands steady as I shaped a vase. The rhythm of the wheel, the feel of the clay between my fingers, was meditative. I didn't know it then, but this simple act was helping me find a sense of purpose again. For the first time in so long, I felt proud of what I was doing, of the life I was creating. But even with this newfound sense of strength, Kevin's messages still lingered in the background. I hadn't responded to his last message, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to. Part of me wanted to reach out, to make things right, but another part of me knew that the road to healing didn't involve rushing back into the same patterns that had hurt me. I had to take it slow. That evening, Sarah called me. Her voice was bright, but there was a hint of concern. "Hey, Helen. How's everything going?" "Good," I replied, smiling to myself as I leaned against the kitchen counter. "Really good, actually." "I'm glad to hear that," Sarah said. "But you've been so focused on yourself lately, and..." "That's great, but maybe it's time to think about forgiving Kevin. I'm not saying you should forget what happened, but it might help you heal." I paused, considering her words. "I don't know if I'm ready yet," I said honestly. "I've spent my whole life putting their needs before mine. I'm just now learning how to take care of myself." "I get that," Sarah said. "I just don't want you to carry all that weight forever. You deserve peace, Helen." Her words hit me harder than I expected. Sarah had been there through everything, and she was right. I couldn't keep holding on to the past forever. As much as I wanted to protect myself from further hurt, I also wanted to move forward, to heal. And sometimes, that meant letting go of the things that kept me stuck. The next morning, I decided to take a step. I picked up my phone, hesitated for a moment, and then opened Kevin's message thread. I read through his words again, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger or sadness. I just felt tired of carrying this burden. I typed out a simple reply, "Let's talk. When you're ready." It wasn't an apology, but it was a step toward reconciliation. A small, quiet bridge back to him. But even as I sent it, I knew that things would never be the same. I had changed. I had to change. And so had Kevin. It wasn't going to be easy, but I wasn't afraid of hard work. Not anymore. The following day, Kevin showed up at my door, just like he said he would. He looked different somehow, as if the weight of the past few weeks had worn him down. His eyes were tired, but there was something else there now, a kind of understanding, maybe even regret. He took a deep breath before he spoke. "Mom," he said softly, "I know I've messed up. I've been selfish. I never saw it before, but I see it now. I've taken you for granted for so long." I nodded, not sure how to respond. "I don't know how to fix this, but I want to try. I don't want to lose you." I looked at him for a long moment, my heart heavy with everything that had come before. I wanted to forgive him, to tell him it was all okay, but it wasn't okay. It wasn't that simple. "I can't promise you anything, Kevin," I said, my voice steady but filled with emotion. "I've been hurt, and it's going to take time for me to heal. But I'm willing to try. For me. For us." His face softened, and he nodded, a faint smile breaking through the sadness. "I understand, Mom. I'll be here when you're ready. I'll wait. I won't rush you." And with that, he left. Just like that, we had taken the first step toward rebuilding what had been broken. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. It was going to take time, patience, and a lot of hard work. But for the first time in years, I felt like I had control over my life again. I wasn't going to let the past define me. I wasn't going to let anyone make me feel invisible. I was worth more than that. I had spent too many years letting my family dictate my worth. I had spent too many years living in the shadows of their lives. But now, it was my turn to live. It was my turn to take up space in the world. And for the first time, I was ready. I was ready to let go of the pain, to let go of the past, and to finally start living for myself. And no matter what happened next, I knew one thing for sure, I was enough. I had always been enough. Weeks went by, and as I continued to navigate this new chapter of my life, something inside me began to shift. The quiet strength I had started to develop only grew stronger with time. I woke up every morning not feeling like a victim of my circumstances, but rather like a woman who was finally starting to live for herself. I was no longer just Helen, the mother, the grandmother, the wife. I was Helen, the woman who had been lost in the roles she played for so long, but now I was beginning to see her clearly. I was rediscovering passions I had long ignored, finding joy in things that had once been just background noise to the constant demands of family life. I spent my days in the studio, surrounded by clay and paint, creating pieces that were mine and mine alone. I realized that I had been waiting for permission to live, but now I was taking it for myself. I didn't need anyone to tell me I was worthy. I was worthy simply because I existed. As the days passed, I kept the same routine, but I felt different. Stronger. More certain of who I was. But even though I had made strides in my own personal growth, Kevin's absence still lingered. I couldn't ignore that part of me that longed for the bond we once shared. Part of me still wanted to hold on to the family I had known, to somehow fix what had been broken. But I knew deep down that the path to healing wasn't in forcing something that wasn't there anymore. I had tried to fix things in the past, and it only led to more disappointment. This time, I needed to let things unfold on their own. And as much as I hated to admit it, I knew I couldn't control everything, especially the way my son saw me or how he would choose to be part of my life moving forward. But that didn't mean I was going to sit around waiting for him to make the first move. I had taken control of my own life, and I would continue to do so. I wouldn't let his actions, or lack thereof, define my happiness. One morning, as I was finishing a cup of coffee on my porch, I heard the familiar sound of a car pulling into the driveway. I didn't need to look up to know who it was. Kevin. He had come by unannounced, just like he had the last time. I felt a flutter in my chest, a mixture of excitement and anxiety. I had been bracing for this moment, knowing it would eventually come, but now that it was here, I wasn't sure how I felt. I had taken steps toward healing, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to open the door to the past. As he stepped out of the car and walked toward me, I couldn't help but notice how different he looked. He had always been the confident, charming son who never showed much vulnerability. But today, there was something softer in his eyes, something that seemed to reflect the weight of the past few months. When he reached the porch, he stopped and looked at me for a moment before speaking. "Mom. Can we talk?" he asked quietly. I nodded, my heart racing. I wasn't sure if I was ready to talk, but I also knew that I needed to hear him out. I had waited for him to come to me, and now that he was here, I couldn't just close the door again. I motioned for him to sit next to me. "I'm listening," I said softly. Kevin took a deep breath before he spoke again, his voice thick with emotion. "I've been thinking about everything. About the way I treated you, about how I've taken you for granted all these years. I can't tell you how sorry I am, Mom. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, but I need you to know that I was wrong. I was so wrapped up in my own life, in everything I thought I wanted, that I forgot about you. I didn't appreciate everything you did for me, for our family. And now, I realize I've lost you. I don't want to lose you, Mom." I looked at him, taking in his words. There was a vulnerability in his voice that I hadn't heard before, and it made me pause. For the first time in a long time, I felt like he was truly seeing me, not just as his mother, but as a person. And for a brief moment, I felt the walls I had built start to crumble. I wanted to forgive him. I wanted to believe that he had changed. But I also knew that forgiveness wasn't something I could give away easily. It wasn't just about the words. It was about the actions that followed. "Kevin," I said, my voice steady, "you hurt me. And it's not something I can just forget. I spent so many years putting everyone else first, thinking that if I just kept giving, if I just kept doing, everything would be okay. But I'm not that person anymore. I've spent too long waiting for people to come to me, to see my worth. I can't do that anymore. I can't keep putting myself last." He looked down, the weight of my words sinking in. I know, he whispered. I understand. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I just want you to know that I'm here. I'm ready to do whatever it takes to make things right. I nodded. Slowly, feeling a mix of emotions. I'm not sure what that looks like yet, Kevin, I said quietly. I'm still figuring out who I am, and what I want. But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to rebuild, if you are. He nodded, his eyes full of hope. I'll be patient, Mom. I'll wait. And I'll prove to you that I'm not the person I was. And just like that, the first step toward healing had been taken. It wasn't a promise of instant change, but it was a promise of effort. A promise that things could be different. It was a small step, but it was a step forward. And that was enough for now. It had been a few weeks since Kevin and I had that conversation, and while things weren't perfect, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. I spent more time focusing on myself, continuing my pottery, and exploring things I had long forgotten about. My life was slowly coming back together, piece by piece. Kevin had kept his word and given me the space I needed. There were no more desperate messages or calls. He seemed to understand that I wasn't going to rush into anything, and that was a relief. But even with the distance between us, I couldn't help but wonder if I was doing the right thing. Was I being too harsh? Was it too late for us to go back to the way things were? I didn't know. What I did know was that I couldn't continue living my life trying to fit into a mold that others had created for me. I had to decide who I was without relying on anyone else. I had spent years being a mother, a grandmother, a wife, but now I was just Helen. Helen, who could live for herself, who didn't have to beg for love or attention. One afternoon, as I was sitting in the kitchen, I saw a message from Kevin pop up on my phone. I hadn't heard from him in a while, and I hesitated for a moment before opening it. Mom, can we talk? I really want to make things right between us. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I know I've let you down. I understand if you're not ready yet, but I hope you'll consider talking to me soon. I sat there, looking at the message, trying to figure out how I felt. I wasn't angry anymore, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to open up to him again. I had to be honest with myself. I had spent so long trying to fix things for everyone else that I had forgotten how to take care of myself. I needed to keep my boundaries, and I wasn't going to let anyone cross them again. But there was a part of me that missed him, that still loved him. As I sat there thinking, Sarah called me. Hey, Helen, she said, her voice light. How are you doing today? I'm good, I replied. Just thinking, about everything. I get it, she said. But you have to admit, it's hard when they reach out. You've been through so much, and it's easy to just want things to go back to the way they were. But sometimes, we have to take the time to heal and see if it's really worth going back to. I nodded, her words resonating deep within me. I know, I said softly. But I also don't want to let go of something that still feels important. I just don't know if it's possible to fix it. It's okay not to have all the answers right now, Sarah said. Take your time. You've done so much for everyone else. Now it's your turn to take care of you. Thanks, Sarah, I said, my voice quiet but full of gratitude. After I hung up, I sat in the stillness, feeling the weight of the decision I had to make. I had already taken steps to find my own happiness, but this was different. This was my son, the one who had been the center of my world for so long. Could I really move on from the hurt, from the years of feeling invisible, of feeling like I wasn't enough? I wasn't sure, but I knew I couldn't keep living in the past. I had to keep moving forward, for myself. The next day, I called Kevin. Kevin, I said when he picked up, I've been thinking. And I think it's time we have that conversation. Mom, he said, his voice filled with relief, I've been waiting for you to say that. I'm ready to do whatever it takes to make things right. I'm not sure what that looks like yet, I said, my voice steady but not without emotion, but I think we can start by talking. About what happened, about what we both need moving forward. There was a long pause on the other end of the line before he spoke again. I've been selfish, Mom. I know that now. I've taken you for granted, and I don't want to lose you. But I understand that it's going to take time to rebuild trust, and I'm willing to do that. I took a deep breath. It's not just about trust, Kevin, I said softly. It's about respect. I've spent too long putting everyone else first, and I can't do that anymore. I need to know that you see me for who I am, not just as your mother, but as a person. I need to know that I'm worthy of respect, just like anyone else. You are, he said quickly. I'm sorry for not seeing that before. I've been so caught up in everything else that I forgot to see you. You're important, Mom. You always have been. His words were a balm to my weary soul, but I wasn't ready to let go of the boundaries I had put in place. I'm not asking for everything to be fixed overnight, Kevin, I said. But I need to take this one step at a time. And right now, I need to focus on myself. I can't keep waiting for things to fall into place. I need to be whole first. I understand, Mom, he said, his voice full of sincerity. And I'm here, whenever you're ready. I'll wait, and I'll keep working to be the son you deserve. Thank you, Kevin, I said, my heart swelling with a mix of relief and caution. That means a lot to me. We ended the conversation with a sense of mutual understanding. I didn't know what the future held for our relationship, but I knew I was taking the right steps for me. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was living on my terms, and that was all that mattered. I wasn't going to let my past define me anymore. I was moving forward, and nothing could hold me back. It had been a few months since Kevin and I had that conversation. Things weren't perfect, but they were better. I had finally accepted that healing was not a straight line. It was a series of small, painful steps, but each one felt like progress. I spent my days working on my pottery, finding peace in the quiet of the studio, and rediscovering who I was beyond the roles I had played in my family. I had started to see the beauty in my own life, in the way I had built something for myself, something that didn't depend on anyone else's approval. As the days passed, I began to realize that I had more to offer than just being a mother, a grandmother, or a wife. I was Helen. And that was enough. One day, as I was finishing a new piece in the studio, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Kevin. Mom, I've been thinking a lot about our last conversation. I know it's been a while, but I just want you to know I've been working on myself. I've been trying to be the person you deserve. I know it's not going to be easy, but I hope we can start again. I read his words, my heart heavy. It wasn't the first time he had apologized, but this time, something felt different. It wasn't just an apology. It felt like a genuine effort, like he was finally seeing me as I was, not just as his mother, but as a person. I set my phone down and stared at it for a moment. I wasn't sure what to do. I wasn't ready to dive back into a relationship with him just yet, but the fact that he was reaching out made me think. Maybe it was time to open the door, just a little. I took a deep breath and typed back, let's talk. When you're ready. The message felt like a small step forward. It wasn't a promise, but it was a willingness to meet him halfway. Over the next few days, I found myself thinking about it more. What did I want? Was I ready to let Kevin back into my life, even after everything? Part of me was still scared. I didn't want to go back to the way things were. I didn't want to keep sacrificing myself for the sake of others. But I also didn't want to hold on to the hurt forever. I knew that forgiveness wasn't about forgetting. It was about letting go of the anger, of the bitterness, so that I could move on. I wasn't going to let the past define me. And maybe, just maybe, there was room for Kevin in my life again. A few days later, Kevin called. This time, he didn't just send a message. He called. I felt my heart race as I saw his name on the screen. I wasn't sure if I was ready, but I knew I had to answer. Mom, he said softly when I picked up, I've been waiting to hear from you. I know things haven't been great, but I'm ready to try again. I'm ready to be the son you deserve. Please, let me show you that I can change. I took a deep breath, my mind swirling with conflicting emotions. Kevin, I said slowly, I'm not sure what this will look like. I don't know if things can go back to how they were, but I'm willing to try. I need to know that you're not just saying this to make things easier. I need to know that you understand what you've done and that you're truly committed to making things right. I do understand, Mom, he said quietly. And I know it won't be easy. But I'm not asking for everything to be fixed overnight. I just want a chance to prove that I can be there for you, the way you've always been there for me. His words were sincere, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe we could rebuild, piece by piece. It wouldn't happen overnight, but it could happen, in time. All right, I said, my voice steady. We'll take it one step at a time. Thank you, Mom, Kevin replied, his voice full of relief. I promise I won't let you down again. We hung up, and I sat there for a while, letting the weight of the conversation sink in. It wasn't a magic fix. It wasn't a guarantee that everything would be okay. But it was a start. A start that I wasn't sure I was ready for, but that I knew I had to take. As the days went on, I kept working on myself. I didn't rush into anything with Kevin. I took my time, making sure I was solid in my own foundation before I allowed anyone else to disrupt it. Slowly, I started to open up more. I allowed myself to let him back in, little by little. He started visiting, and we would sit and talk, slowly rebuilding our relationship. It wasn't easy, and there were moments of tension, moments where the past would rise up, threatening to pull us back. But we kept moving forward, one conversation at a time. And slowly, I started to see the change in him. I saw the effort. I saw the sincerity in his actions. It wasn't perfect. It would never be perfect. But it was progress. And progress was enough. One evening, after a long day, I sat down at my kitchen table, a cup of tea in my hand, and looked out the window at the setting sun. I realized that, for the first time in a long time, I felt content. I wasn't waiting for anyone else to make me happy. I wasn't dependent on anyone's approval. I had found peace within myself. And that, I realized, was the most important thing. I had done it. I had taken control of my life. I had learned how to live for myself, and now, I could finally embrace whatever came next with open arms. It had been a few more months since Kevin and I began rebuilding our relationship. I could feel the change, not just in him, but in me too. There were days when I still struggled with the weight of the past, days when I wondered if I had made the right choice, but overall, I felt stronger. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just defined by the roles I played for others. I was simply Helen, a woman who had learned to live for herself. Kevin and I continued to take things one step at a time, and as we did, I found myself healing in ways I hadn't expected. The emotional scars from the past still lingered, but they no longer controlled me. I had let go of the anger and resentment, and in its place, I found a sense of peace that I had longed for. One evening, as I was sitting on my porch, enjoying the cool breeze of the early spring, I saw Kevin pull into the driveway. It had become a regular thing by now, his visits, our talks, but this time felt different. He wasn't just visiting for a quick conversation or to check in. He was coming with something. I watched as he stepped out of the car and walked up to the porch, carrying a small package in his hand. When he reached the door, he smiled at me. "I brought something for you," he said. "It's not much, but I thought you might like it." I raised an eyebrow, curious. "What is it?" He handed me the package, and I opened it slowly. Inside, I found a small pottery bowl, beautifully crafted, with intricate patterns carved into the surface. It was stunning, and I could see the care and effort that went into it. "It's for you," he said quietly. "I know I can't fix everything, but I wanted to show you that I've been learning, too. I've been working on myself, and this is part of it. I want to make things right, Mom. I really do." I looked at the bowl in my hands, feeling a mixture of emotions. It wasn't just the gift, it was the gesture, the effort he had put into making something for me. It was a sign that he was trying, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like he understood. I set the bowl down and looked at him. "Kevin," I said, my voice soft but steady. "I don't know if I'll ever fully forget what happened. But I can see that you're trying. And that means more to me than I can say. We're not going to fix everything overnight, but we're taking steps. And that's all I can ask for." He nodded, his eyes filled with emotion. "Thank you, Mom," he said. "I know I've hurt you, but I'll keep working to make things better. I won't give up on us." I smiled at him, feeling a sense of warmth in my chest. It wasn't perfect, and there were still bumps along the way, but in that moment, I realized that the relationship we were building now was real. It wasn't based on the past, but on the present and what we could create together moving forward. The road to healing wasn't linear, and it wasn't easy. But it was worth it. And as I sat there on the porch, looking at the bowl he had made for me, I felt hopeful. Hopeful for the future, for the relationship we were rebuilding, and most importantly, for the woman I had become. I was no longer living in the shadows of my past. I was finally stepping into the light of who I truly was. I didn't need anyone else to define me anymore. I had found my voice, my strength, and my peace. And for the first time in a long time, I was proud of who I was. I was enough. I had always been enough.